film in the official section, Magical Girl. For this, we've got with us the director, Mr. Carlos Bermud, actors and actresses Jorge Sacristan, Luis Bermejo, and Lucia Poyana, and the producer, Pedro Hernandez. And they are awaiting your first question. Your first question here in the front row, if you could be so kind. Hi, good morning. First of all, congratulations for the film to you and the entire cast and the entire team. I thought it was fabulous. Thank you very much. A question, well, there are two questions. I would like to know, I've not had the good fortune of having seen your previous film, Diamond Flash, and I would like to know how you've seen yourself having directed Diamond Flash beforehand, which is a film that wasn't, well, extensively or almost zero distribution, and now with this film, which is being talked about a lot. We're seeing it here at the film festival, and quite probably it'll have a good distribution. I'd like to know how you see your evolution as regards to your direction in these two films. And talking about distribution, I'd like to know if it's going to be well distributed in this film as of this film festival. Thank you. Obviously, the change that exists between Diamond Flash, a film that I made with 25,000 euros that I saved by working in TV, and basically when I started to shoot for the first time, because I wanted to experience what it was to shoot a film, I wanted to make mistakes at the same time, and the experience of going on to Magical Girl, well, it's working with a bigger production, which has allowed me, or enabled me, better said, to not having to make sandwiches for the catering and to be able to direct the actors at the end of the day, which is the part of the shooting shooting a film that I enjoy the most. And that's the change. I've got to be very thankful to Pedro. Pedro's over there. Pedro, hi. The producer of the film, who saw Diamond Flash. He believed that there was potential in that film and he wagered in favor. Let's give him more money because perhaps we can do something larger and greater and better. And it's been a pleasure. As regards distribution, Pedro can talk to you about that, and that's it. Well, the distribution, we've got the intention of it being a film and that bigger audiences can see. But as the system's set up, it doesn't enable us to do too much with it, really. We've set a minimum copies, which are 30 copies, which allows us to appear in all the cinemas of independent film, but it depends upon the reaction of what happens in San Sebastian. The audience in San Sebastian is great, absolutely great, and they applaud everything and they're very generous. Well, not everything. I don't think that they applaud everything. I'm glad that they do that, by the way. But we'll see what happens. After San Sebastian, we can take a better position, a better stance, and we'll know better who might like this film. Hi. Over here, in the center, a question for the director. In a film where there's no naturalist key, or because what you've done, why have you introduced that portrait of a country which is in crisis with dialogues that are very explicit about that crisis, with two teachers who are unemployed? Why that vision of the country? Well, my intention was to make a film that was placed in a specific place and time. The moment is the present time and the place is Spain. I wanted to be like that. I didn't want a film that could be play in any place and in any place or any time. The plot, I wanted to place normal characters that had needs, that had to deal with the current economic crisis, not only the economic crisis, but that made them do things that would enable me to go the more naturalist side of genre film that you've talked about. But there's something that we can recognize, really. Maybe it's not with dark alleyways and noir genre film. And I wanted a noir film that was located in Madrid, in the city that I know, and the environment and setting I know. Therefore, the audience, whatever happens, when everything gets twisted and changes, it turns into a noir genre film. I think it's much more of a surprise, and I wanted it to be that way. Hi, good morning. I'd like to ask Carlos about his references, because apart from Almodóvar or even the beginning of Colomo, that freshness we see of the Spanish cinema, I thought it recognized a bit of Buñuel in your film. I'm not too sure whether he's a director that you're interested in specifically. Congratulations for the film, by the way. I think it's quite surprising and it's quite transgressive. And Pepe had already told me that we should pay attention to you. And I would like to ask Pepe, those hard roles that they're giving you as of late, in this moment, these young directors, is that a coincidence or how do you evaluate all this? Well, as a tough guy in the film. He's a poor devil, really, who's obliged due to circumstances to use methods or procedures that aren't harsh or get close to being harsh or tough, but something very terrible. But I can't, all I can do is celebrate and live this time the fact that these young directors with a lot of talent and courage and who love cinema and knowing perfectly what they do, as regards to the previous question, I think that the starting point necessarily has to be perfectly recognizable. And necessarily, as of there, Carlos extends or gets closer to the characters. And that in that two-way street, there are all sort of edges and perspectives that in a normal treatment may not appear. But that's just a dimension which goes a little further of a person who we can perfectly find out in the street when we walk out, because otherwise the film would be a completely different film. And what can I say? Well, I celebrate the fact that I've got the confidence and the trust of young directors, not only as a professional, I must say it, and they are formidable roles that I'm being offered, but the luck of being with them, going through this journey with what's going on in the world today, to insist and demonstrate that the love for cinema, to get and to know what you're doing, and the courage to be able to undertake these projects is something which is very exciting, to live it alongside them. So I want to celebrate it in all different aspects, not only to the quality or not of the film, because that anyone can have their own opinion upon them, but to be in this period of time, which is so exciting and so interesting, and something it pisses us off at times also, and is undoubtedly in my case due to the fact that I turned 77 years of age the day after tomorrow. It makes me feel younger, and makes me feel very, very young. As regards to the references that you were talking about, there are some that are conscious of the film that you like consciously, and others that are unconscious of the film that you like, even if you don't like it, but you've seen something in a film that you've liked, and and you incorporate it. Obviously, I love Buñuel, Saura, it drives me crazy, and the Spanish directors. The more I get older, they like them more because I'm learning things a bit more symbolically, because when you're younger, you don't connect to those films that way. Or when you see a film by Saura later on, and you start to discover things as regards to how Spaniards are, or your culture, or your day-to-day in Spain, and that I incorporate. And undoubtedly Almodóvar, who for me is a master, he's like a master. It's like the ninjas, like, for example, like a sensei. What can I say? It's quite obvious in the film. I don't like to hide or I think we have to tribute them from the love of cinema, which is what I do, and I think I enjoy this and celebrate it at the same time. Hi, my question is for the director. I would like to know as regards to the decision of not including turbid scenes in the film. I was always looking to find the trauma of my life, and then no, because we tend to include the most turbid scenes possible in a film. That's the feeling. I would like to know why you did. These are decisions of the direction and the narrative. That is to say, when you decide to write a script, you can do a million things. You can try it, you can show or not show it on the screen. And everything that you doubt, when in doubt, don't. I trust the audience, and I like trusting, when I write the script, I like to trust my actors, Lucia, Luis, Pepe, and Barbara. I trust them. I don't explain the past of the characters. I prefer to them to complete the film from their own way, from their own day-to-day, and I want the audience to complete those things that I'd even include in the script. I think that the audience shouldn't be used in passive to sit down and watch a film. I want them to be active and to participate with their experience and their day-to-day lives, to participate the pleasant things and especially the unpleasant things, which what we've got inside, what we can imagine or not imagine or feel perhaps, is something going to be much more terrific than anything I can tell you that's behind the door for example.
Preguntas, por favor.
Further questions?
Sí, aquí.
Yes, over here in the second row, please. Yes, there's the microphone behind you. Hi. Congratulations for the film. We love the film, and I would like to ask you whether you believe that something that defines you in the way you direct is create the confusion of feelings, confuse the audience yesterday, and I assure you short, I laughed at Don Pepe Poppy, and you go, Jesus, it makes me laugh. It's a tragedy, to the truth, what I'm saying, but I'm laughing. It makes you laugh. But what's your message with that technique and that brand that you've almost set up for yourself? Yes, that's the way it is. Yes, and I like. As regards to the film as an audience, to put the audience in a position that they see themselves in things that happen that are abominable, why do I do it? Because it makes me laugh. Well, I think it's funny and I enjoy doing it. That's why I do it. And I like to put the audience and into moral discussions with themselves and the characters themselves. I like to put them into extreme situations. I think it's exciting. At the end of the day, it's emotional. It's exciting. It's to see a film in which the main character, you're liking him, you go, what are you doing? What are you doing? No. He's a traitor. No, I didn't. And things have turned around. And a TV series, this is Breaking Bad, Lost. But in a film, you've got to cut to the chase. But that's the way I like to work with the characters. I like to combine what's tragic with what's comic, with comedy, because it doesn't distinguish genres. And I like to be aware of what's happening in reality. The more films, I don't want it to lose contact in the dialogues or in the lines or with the comedy and tragedy. And I don't want it I want it to stick close to reality. That's what I mean. I'm not too sure whether everything starts, or I'm under the feeling that everything starts with cuts in education. There are three coincidences that take place that at the end of the day bring about this situation. There's a cut that was brought about Luis, and he's unemployed, and as of there. And that's why I would like to ask you what value you give to education, because I'm not too sure. Well, it seems to me that you can summarize it as a struggle between instinct and reason in these characters, that struggle that they base their actions upon, and also it's also important, and is teaching important when we train citizens and use tools so that they can start up and struggle throughout life. I'm not too sure whether you can answer this question. Yes, as regards to the importance of education, I think it's absolutely all, and that's it. The society, and they should be constructed based upon education, not pedagogical or paternalistic. We should the education to develop as individuals, we as a whole, so we can achieve individuals that are complex and different, pluralistic, but individuals, and this is achieved by our education based upon respect, and the individual in the sense of being a full and a whole person. As regards to you've asked me this, and then you've asked me, could you repeat the other question? Yes, well, to a certain extent, this is linked to the issue of education and that narrative spiral. It's all of those coincidences, and if you go a bit further, the audience in this case may think that it all starts with all of the cuts taken in by the Ministry of Education and brings about this drama. No, it wasn't a criticism to the system of cuts, economic cuts, but it stems from that, and the critique emerges later. It's not necessary, but the feeling is much more playful, much more enjoyable. I want to make a great film. I want to be a very great film. And then things emerge and you incorporate, just like I told your colleague, of placing it in reality. And those characters that a noir genre film may have because they've got a briefcase, I want it to be a teacher who's unemployed, as we see, and he's got this big drama of his daughter who's dying. The idea of making the film doesn't emerge from there, but I do incorporate it into the film. Oh, on the left. Hi, good morning. I've got two questions. One for Mr. Sacristan. Congratulations. The truth is, you're great. You're a real phenomenon. No, you can't qualify me under being a phenomenon now. No, nothing else will do. So you got day after tomorrow, I'm 77. Well, congratulations. And congratulations for the actress, the young girl, for you, or perhaps the director, or yourself. The role that you play is quite complicated. The truth is, I'm not too sure whether you hate or you love Barbara. I'm not too sure. This is quite complicated. I got a bit lost there. Can you enlighten me about that? What happens there? That's the director, and congratulations to the actress, the young girl. And the question is whether it was very difficult to play this special role of, I forget the name of the character, but the role that you've portrayed of that young girl. That's it. Congratulations. Thank you. Well, as regards to myself, I can't give you any more information than the director wants to give in the film. To explain that relationship more would mean I would be talking about another film. That's the data you have. What happens between this man and this young girl, and what has happened over the time that's gone by? Well, okay, do what you can as the audience, and that's it. Because if we give you any more information, it's another movie. It's another film. It's a reality that emerges perfectly resolved and easy to identify with, and all of a sudden, when you find a director like Carlos who has the talent or the ease or the skill that the same position with the camera, simply a slight movement in the camera, and all of a sudden the moral background and sentimental and emotional background of an enormous amount of characters, all of that, and plus in a structure or a frame, a plot an argumentative frame that from the outset is formidable. I'm a fan of the film. Apart from being in it, I think it's an example, a magnificent example of how to tell a story. And I'm sorry that in this sense, the information is what you get. What you see is what you get, because if we go over and give you more information, you fall into the yellow pages. It's another completely different film. This film facilitates so that you can walk along the way and contribute from your own point of view and your own imagination. Otherwise, I insist, the film would be another film. Well, there were scenes that were much more difficult than others, but for example, that of smoking. But I had a great time in all of the scenes. I had a really good time. And albeit they were difficult, you end up doing it at the end of the day, and that's it, you've done it, and you end up enjoying it. But it was quite difficult, but it was okay. Hi, again. I've seen two different billboards of the film. One appears in the newspaper, the festival newspaper, the daily newspaper. And the one that I like is that a drawing of Barbara Lenny with a black lizard. I would like to know the idea of those billboards, who designed them, whether they were your contribution, you contributed to that, and if you'll allow me another question, the film starts with the voice of Pepe Sacristan, and I'm not too sure whether that simply was an idea that you thought about from the beginning, or it's a luxury for all of you, so that we can listen to his fantastic voice.
La primera pregunta sobre los carteles.
As regards to the billboards, I am an illustrator and I draw comics. Well, I did. That's the job I used to do before I made films, and I love making billboards. It's a pity this is something that's being. It's a profession that's being lost. Now, all of a sudden, it appears on the face, but there's no idea conceptually from a design standpoint. And going back to Sauda's films that we were talking about, it freaked me out, Sauda and Almodovar, to show them and to tell the story of the film on the billboard in an image. I've done press illustrations as well. So in press illustrations, you've got to be very conceptual. I like to design and draw the billboards to the film. The fact that the first was a teaser poster, where the actors don't appear, and the second is a poster perhaps for the cinema theaters where you have the faces of the actors, which I think is very interesting from a commercial standpoint. As regards to the second question, I don't remember. Oh, Pepe Sacristan's voice at the beginning. Well, when I met Mr. Sacristan, I had to drink 4 or 5 beers before going to dinner with him because he still imposes. His persona is quite imposing. And I said when I started to, The War of the Worlds, the film by Steven Spielberg, was premiered in Spain. The film had the voice of Pepe Sacristan at the beginning. And I thought, well, I want to do the same thing. I said, that's what I want to do. I want a film with the voice of Pepe Sacristan with a black screen. I said, okay, Damian, in black, he talks. Okay, for the pleasure of doing so, the pleasure of listening to his voice and the pleasure that he can captivate you and you can enter into the film through his voice. What better way to enter into a film with Mr. Sacristan's voice? And I talked to him about that dinner. At that dinner, I said, I want to start the film this way because he said something that was really a really bad word, and he said, when I heard the truth, he swore, but I'm not going to repeat what he said, but he said, I'll do it. It's a pleasure of listening to his voice. And by the way, the billboards and the posters, I'm doing El Loco de los Balcones in Spanish theater, and the Spanish theater is very good. It's bloody great. And the Loco de Balcones is a play I'm doing. It's marvelous, the poster. As regards to the actors, I would like to see, the casting has been quite prepared. Pepe, who's well known, the majority of the Luis, Barbara, Israel, and Elizabeth, these are people who are more linked are more present in plays and in the theatre world. Could you tell us a bit about how you chose them, how you did the casting? Yeah, I know that you have a casting director, but I would like to know, this cliche is always mentioned, that is to say, that the actors come to cinema from theatre, as is used to be the case in the past. It seems it's the best way to learn. There's a discussion here, there's a big debate, and there are many opinions, but it seems that was the natural path of Spanish theatre, to look for your actors on stage. Well, the first question, the casting started to work with Sara Bilbatua. How we met Elizabeth, I was going to tell you, that was pretty powerful as well when I met Elizabeth. Well, we met because I was walking through a park. I stopped and I started to talk to a friend and said, I don't know, that was very powerful. Oh, no, because I was looking for an actor. I said, well, we're going to do a short tomorrow or in a week's time. And she said, cool, fantastic. With Sara Bilbatua, the first mind I had in mind was Luis Bermejo. I wanted to work with him. The moment I saw El Señor by Juan Cabistani, I said I want to do a film with him. Where Luis Bermejo, I wrote the script. The character's name is called Luis, not Lewis, but the Lewis Carroll, the father of Alice in the Wonderland. Children. It's all, I'm using other people. Luis Bermejo is also called Luis. I said Luis is going to be the father of this daughter. And the first character was Luis. Then there were two other characters. There was a 50-year-old lady and a 40-year-old man who had changed their ages so they could be Barbara and Lenny and Jose Sacristan. Like what they could offer, a student and a teacher. I said, well, let's do this. Let's use that as the foundations for the script, those characters. And Elizabeth Jalabert, I had already worked with her in a short, and I wanted to continue to work, and I hope to continue to work with her for many years. And Israel, it was Sara Bilbatua. She said, I thought it was marvelous that we incorporated him into the film. With Sarah, the work was very interesting because I was writing, while I was talking to her at the same time, profiles for the film. The film started to grow as we worked together with the casting, with Pedro in production to achieve financing, and all of a sudden I changed the plot. It drove me a bit crazy, but that's the way we did the job, and that's the way we did things. And that of actors coming from the theatre, that's a coincidence because the truth is, I haven't been making films for a long time, so theatre even less. I'm completely disconnected. Slowly but surely, I'm starting to appreciate theatre and to go more to theatre and watch plays because of friends. But this is something that I'm very disconnected to, but I think it's a very good school. I see it because I notice it, of actors. School or to learn TV, for example, also. how actors that come from TV are practical as regards to performing, which are very technical for an actor to memorize your lines and be resolute. If TV doesn't have that, it might be complicated to say, well, this is a bit of a pain, maybe repeated, but there are things that you learn on stage that it makes things easier if you want to, to make the scenes a bit more in depth. Hi, good morning. I would like to know, and as regard to what Mr. Sacristan said, that the information, what you see is what you get. When we left the film, I read the synopsis and it said, a young girl who's sick, who dreams with a dress, and her father tries to achieve the dress for her. I would like to know whether the story stems from there, or how did you create the story? The story stems from a simple idea of a story with a narrative structure. The idea is that I want to make a film, and I said, I want to make a film, I said before, and I want it to be a good film. So therefore I thought, the structure is like a story. It's a film, this person is blackmailed, asks for help, and the person he asks help for, when he sees that blackmails them once again, when it has that object in mind. That's where I build a why did you ask for help, who this person is. Initially, and I said before, were other characters, and I changed the characters that made it easier of the relationship between the teacher and the student. There are many stories there. Let's go further in depth and see what this offers to us. And then all of a sudden you go, this person, why is she blackmailing that first person? Why? They may need money. What for? First of all, I thought about drugs being involved. And I talked to a friend, I said, drugs? Nah, there are too many films that deal with drugs. Put something else in. I said, well, let's put something else into it. If we're not going to make a film heavy, let's give a bit of light to it, like as in contrast, a dress of a magical girl. Aesthetically can work, and then something which is aesthetic and only works aesthetically, you go, okay, it gives me to bring about the next twist, because you're lacking the scepter. And the scepter, so when you think that it's finished but there's a change and the film continues, and it only continues, but what seems it's going to finish all turns into an explosion of violence. And that's how I create it. Things occur to my mind, and the truth is I write them down to promote, to underline things that I'm interested in showing on the screen. Yes, it seems that there was a question over there. Hi, good morning. Congratulations for the film, and thank you very much for the film. Personally, I enjoyed it from the beginning to end, and it's surprising. It doesn't allow you... You feel like watching even more of the film when it's finished. But I wanted to ask you, at a script, and that was the previous question, but how long did it take? How long have you used to write the script? And whether you've got many more scripts or more ideas, or directly do you work as of a script and you only focus upon that, or do you have several projects or several ideas and that you've hidden in a drawer to develop them later? Yes. As regards to how long I took, this idea and structure, at the end of 2011 and 2012, I was invited to a seminar where I had to meet some French producers. I met Pedro, we went there with a film, and we met each other there. And I need a quick synopsis for this. No, I wrote it down. I sat down to write it. At the end of the day, when everything that happens, I feel very lazy to sit down and write, because I like to think more romantically in the characters. But you've got to sit down and write, and that's where everything comes out. Because it's difficult for me to do that. But with the script, I spent 7 months more or less, and all of a sudden the story became much more powerful. First it's got a structure, and then Luisa and Alicia's characters come out, and then you construct things to move the audience. 7 months more or less. As regards to whether I've got any stories in the drawer at home, yes. I take down notes of things that occur to me. All of a sudden I see an image, and how do we come to that image? So sometimes it stems from a narrative structure, and sometimes it stems from ideas that I wrote down. I tried to link them all together, 3 different ideas, and end up linking together to construct that story. Yes, I've got a bit of a creative crisis now with this film, and I want to be able to sit down and to see. I've got things written down, but with San Sebastian and the Film Festival overall, this is much more difficult for me to sit down. But yes, I do have some in the drawer. Thank you.
Última pregunta.
One final question, please. Hi. Yes? You've talked about Sauda as an influence, but you belong to a generation, a different generation. You come from the world of comic, from the illustration world. You've been known because of a film that has been premiered on the internet. Do you feel that you form part of a different generation of filmmakers in Spanish cinema? Yes. Well, the truth is, well, yes, because of motivations and influences, there are many people making films. A generation, if there's something that linked to it that connect us all, that's not too clear, and I think that's a good idea. I think that things can emerge. We don't have the need or the obligation of having to have a common discourse. I think it's much more interesting that we are sharpshooters and we get together in some things, and some. I like Lacho Vidalondo. Our films are completely different aesthetically, perhaps, but there does exist something that may connect us. Obsessions. Our films talk about obsessions. We never talk about cinema. I like Jonas Trueba, Juan Cabistani. Yes, I do feel part. I don't feel part of a generation. I'm just a friend of theirs because they do things I like. They make films that I like, and that's it. No, I don't feel. Truly, I don't feel that I belong to a great Nouvelle Vague or whatever. Albeit, I wasn't asked the question. I think that one of the characteristics of Spanish cinema has been its diversity, but from the past as well, in the same generation, there have been directors who are completely opposed and almost antagonistic, and that's very good, and I think that such has always been the case, and there's been a connection between directors. I do see the connection between directors, even on those that have disappeared now, not only in Spain, but with young people, young directors. In the world, in the acting world, the same thing happens. That is to say, summarizing, that generations don't certify or limit or restrict a type of cinema, but more the contrary. They coexist in the same generation. Directors that are completely different and that have different ways of doing things. And I believe that's very good. It's very good. Yes, I would like to say the following. That is true that due to the crisis, the economic crisis and the film crisis in Spain, to make films in a different way. So therefore, when you make a film in a certain way, the economic things affect the operational side of things. When you've got very little money or more money, the stories that you tell are other types of stories. And in that sense, albeit we're a generation that we are affected, albeit we make all types of films due to the crisis, economic crisis or downturn. For better or for worse, we have to approach the way we make our films in a different way. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.